Okay, so this is Eric. I'm here playing Abathur on Temple of the Past. Abathur is using the P2 or tunneling horror style of play, which gives your Roaches and Ravagers deep burrow capability, but your units cost 20% more gold. Gas, which isn't that big a deal for Abathur because a lot of his units don't even require gas. The upgrades do. And by the time you end up upgrading, you've got enough gas. You only have to do it a little bit. Abathur is more about quality than quantity, so you're not going to have as many units as, say, a Zagara or a Kerrigan. Throw up a Overlord right away. I prefer the Overlord right away because that way I can just focus on making drones. It really is just dealer's choice. You can do what you like. Throw out 2 drones. Now I've got a little bit of time to wait before they spawn, so I'm going to take this time to throw out bombs. I like to build them in a strand, following what I expect the pathing of the computer to be, rather than a wall. People build a wall. I never really understood that. It just means that 80% of your bombs are going to go unexploded. So I'm going to be generating 5 drones. That's going to bump my drones to 19 on this mine. Crystals are more important than gas early game with Abathur anyway. You're going to want to get your expansion up early. You're going to want to throw out your Roach Warren. The upgrades will come later, so you can go ahead and just focus on getting crystals early game.
We require additional overlords.
At 150 crystal, throw out some Roach Warren. If you notice, I'm creating a couple of overlords. 2 overlords in addition to the earlier one that you make is probably enough to set up your early game economy. Especially because since your bombs are going to be handling incoming attackers, you'll have plenty of time to deal with those things. At 250, I'm going to grab my drone, get him ready to come over here. I like to build my expansion before I even get rid of the rock formation so I can get started on building my drone legion for pulling out crystals. I have 2 extra drones, which is exactly what I need to be able to build these extractors in the first place. So now I'm at 21 drones on crystals. 3 drones, go to gas. 2 drones plus an additional drone to go on gas over here. I do want a little bit of initial gas so that way I can throw out my Baneling. Sorry, the Zagara. Okay, so we're up against Terran. We're up against Terran vehicles. They followed the pathing I thought they would. I'm going to backfill because now is when I know that their pathing is going to be that way. I like to backfill any bombs that didn't get auto-replaced because of my mastery. Put a couple outside here. I noticed some of the vehicles were trying to go around the other way when things exploded. Hit my 0. Point my drones to go over to the new spot, and then pop out a bunch of drones. Still have 150 crystal. Go ahead and upgrade. So what you want to do as early as possible with Abathur, on the tunneling horror build that I'm showing you, is to be able to get both the bloated bile ducts, which increase the impact size radius of your AoE, and the potent bile, which will increase the damage of the bile. You want to get these as soon as possible. Abathur evolves things faster. It's just part of his class. So you're going to be able to upgrade this right away. You're going to need an infestation pit. So what I'm going to do is build a drone, have it backfilled. I'm going to take one of my live guys and build an infestation pit now. I'm also going to take my hives. I'm going to generate as many roaches as I can right now, which is only 1 because every time I always end up hurting for overlords. 6 overlords will help me build my military. These things exploded. Let's take a look. We have 60 biomass and 92 biomass waiting for us right now. That's before the hybrid comes. So we're going to have enough to be able to pop all 3 Brutalisks when the time comes. We need to remember to keep 3 unupgraded roaches. That way we can convert them to Brutalisks. We don't want to take the time of the gas cost of upgrading them to Ravagers just to have them be converted to Brutalisks if we can avoid it. We have our infestation pit, so we're going to go ahead and upgrade our lair to a hive.
Hybrid signature. detected.
Here comes our hybrid. This is going to be where most of our biomass. Oh, it's a flying one. This is going to be more of a pain. Our Rainer guy can probably handle it as long as we take out the ground troops, which we do. He's also going to take a long time burning through that compared to other units, so that shouldn't be a problem. When you choose Tunneling Horror, you have to still manually upgrade to get the Deep Burrow ability. It doesn't give you the Deep Burrow ability for free on the Ravagers that you create, so you're going to want to make sure that you remember to upgrade the Deep Burrow capability. Now we have quite a few roaches. We're going to burn through the rocks that are covering our gas wall, but we aren't too stressed about it because, like I said before, gas isn't that critical a thing. We have 3 hatcheries, well, ultimately hatcheries, hives and layers and whatnot, which is fine for Abathur. For Zagara or Kerrigan, I would want to do a 6 hive. It just works better for the crystals that they're able to maintain. But for Abathur, it is quality over quantity. You're getting. I don't even think that I'll come close to reaching my unit cap, but you'll see how devastating it is.
It will severely harm the temple for as long as it lives.
Another thing, the Void Thrasher loves to try to kill these bombs. It matters a lot to him. So you can keep the Void Thrasher distracted enough to not take any temple damage, as long as you make sure that you have bombs that can go off. Now I'm going to attack it, but I'm also going to grab one of my guys and have him collect biomass. Grab another one, collect the biomass. Grab the third one, grab the biomass. So now I have my 3 Brutalisks. Now I can go ahead and grab all the rest of the biomass if I want to upgrade my roaches, which will eventually become Ravagers. Now Brutalisks can deep burrow on a 10-second cooldown. Ravagers, when they get deep burrow, and when I have Ravagers, can burrow on a 30-second cooldown, so it takes 3 times as long for the Ravagers to be able to get their cooldown completed compared to a Brutalisk, which is fine. A lot of the time, if there's an emergency where you're going to need to teleport them separately, you'd rather have the Brutalisk have a shorter cooldown than the...
We sense the hybrid.
There's 13 to complete my crystal mining. My crystal mining. I'm going to upgrade these to my Ravagers. I have all of my upgrades, so I have 100 damage per shot in a large AoE. So let's see how that works against these demon monsters that are coming after me. When you upgrade the Ravagers, their abilities will be the highest priority on your interface here. Before the Roaches were upgraded, it was the Brutalisks being able to teleport. So that happens behind the scenes without your paying attention, but it's a very useful thing because you're almost always going to be using Corrosive Bile. You're hardly ever going to be deep tunneling. What I'm saying is that your deep tunneling will happen less frequently than your Corrosive Bile. Also, another good thing about Corrosive Bile for those people who don't like to make a bunch of overlords is that you can Corrosive Bile on an area of land. You don't Corrosive Bile on a unit, like a Yamato gun. So what that means is that if you're facing invisible units, you just have to know where they are. You don't have to be able to target them. So you don't really even need to have invisible detection with Abathur if you're just doing it for yourself. Maybe if your ally needs help, you might want to do it. I'm going to create the rest of my needed roaches. I'm going to get rid of this limitation on overlords, I'll tell you that for sure. Notice I didn't make any evolution chambers. I don't need to evolve my guys because armor and physical damage doesn't really matter much to this unit composition because my army is going to be relying entirely on Corrosive Bile, or as entirely as necessary. So it's not worth trying to get the gas, trying to upgrade them. The benefits are so diminishing to be almost non-existent. Corrosive bile hits buildings, corrosive bile hits units, corrosive bile hits invisible, corrosive bile is just a good thing to have. So here's a noticeable difference between, because you have the control over the Ravagers, you will need to deep burrow them before you deep burrow the... You'll just need to focus on what do you want to go first. If you want the Brutalisks to go first, you might want to hit F2 and then hit tab, so that way the Brutalisks are what you're choosing. Get rid of this real quick. Also, I noticed that I have... Oh, I did my conversion. Excellent. There goes my optional. I'm going to throw out Mend, so that way all my guys are green, except for this one Brutalisk that was clearly tanking his butt off.
Enemy drop pods incoming.
So, my ally is playing Stukov. He's playing the Stukov with loading up the thing, which is cool. I've never played that before. But no matter what, any Stukov, his maneuverability is going to be limited. His ability to react to challenges is going to be impaired. And since I want to have the 4,000 health for as long as I can on my temple, I'm going to go ahead and get in position here, because he's clearly got this upper right on lock. Throw down a bunch of bile, and then I'm just going to go ahead and do him a favor and kill off this base for him, since I'm already up here. I'm going to throw out a preemptive Mend, because I know that this guy could use some healing. I know that the Abathur's queens are fantastic at healing. They're just phenomenal at healing. However, they don't burrow. So if you end up making queens to follow your guys along on what's going on, they're going to be trailing along behind them. They're going to be vulnerable. They're not going to be able to be in position. So I think that for this build, because your Ravagers are going to be so far away from the battle, and the Brutalisks are all that really needs to be healed, you may as well just not make any queens. Rely on your Mend. You'll be good. Same for Leviathans. I love Leviathans. And I'll make a build where I use Leviathans more powerfully, but this build, you're just going to have your Leviathans constantly running around behind your guys trying to figure out why you don't love them. And that's a misnomer. It's more like we have a love-hate relationship with them, and if they would move faster, we would love them more. I'm going to upgrade to... Oh, I'm not going to upgrade to transport units. I'm going to increase my movement rate. It's my goal to get my guys over to the upper right and hollow that out, just because it's a fun little thing to do that you can do with your deep burrowing ability. I'm going to leave my optionals for my ally, because it's a neat thing for him to be able to do when he has time free. So there's a 10-second cooldown on corrosive bile, and I have 2 rows of Ravagers, which means I have a nearly constant supply of bile. Think of corrosive bile at the way that I'm playing this, the way that Karax's energy... Oh, I'm hurting bad for my Brutalisks. Now, yes, I think that the people out there would say that if I had upgraded my things, that their armor would be stronger, but as you can see, I'm voluntarily killing these buildings. I'm only incurring the damage that I myself choose to incur. If you feel that this is a mistake, go ahead and build the evolution chambers and get the armor. It's not a bad thing. Just, I didn't want to dedicate the mental energy to checking 3 times a game and continuing the upgrade process when I feel like I'm not losing any units anyway. Now I have 2 rows and 1. That's 17 Ravagers. What I want to do is make a few more. So I'm going to make 1 more row of Ravagers. And I'm going to go over here in a second. Now the Void Thrasher's coming here. I know this. And I'm going to upgrade the roaches I just made.
Void Thrasher slaughtered.
And now I kill this.
Allies are in combat.
Now, when you have a red thing here, but you can't see it, it's a clear indicator that you have invisible units you have to deal with. So I'm going to deal with that. There, done. So now the board is cleared. These two guys want to die.
Our allies are in combat.
And we'll port back to our base. We're clearly in control of this map now. We can respond to anything that might happen.
Activation is nigh. Continue our defenses, commanders. It is almost time.
Now, when they talk about how we're almost through this or whatever, that's when there'll be a Void Thrasher spawning down here, and there'll be a Void Thrasher spawning up here, and there'll be a wave spawning down here. We can react to all of it, no worries.
Make haste, commanders.
I'm gonna men.
It pains me to see the Xenostones destroyed.
It's probably more important to deal with the wave, because the Void Thrasher in general doesn't do that much damage by himself.
Thrasher has been annihilated.
So if you can just tank a couple of AoEs and kill the wave, you're going to be doing a lot better than if you tank the wave to try to kill the Void Thrasher. If the Void Thrasher has something to target, he's not going to be hitting your base anyway, so you can maintain your 4,000 out of 4,000. And that's everything. Now, another thing worth mentioning is the swarm hosts. Swarm hosts are fantastic. See, we came nowhere near using up all of our
Our allies
supply.
protected.
In fact, if we had used all of our supply to make more Ravagers, I'm not sure it would be any better, because this is already going to have... I could spam Corrosive Bile, and I won't hit a cooldown, because I have so many of my Ravagers that I can just throw it out forever. If I had more people, then I'd have to deal with the logistics of trying to get through the area, of blocking out my stuff, about not being able to have the Brutalisks tank, etc. So having more Ravagers, I'm not sure would be a fantastic... Oh, there's the invisible guy.
Our allies are in combat.
In this case, if I was just experiencing a bad game, or I was getting pressed really hard on these edges, or my ally needed help with defense or whatever, you could make swarm hosts. And the swarm hosts would serve the purpose of, you could burrow them at the top of your thing, or down here where the waves spawn, and they would just act like automated defense systems that would spawn their hosts, and everything would be good. But I don't need that, because my tunneling horror makes it so that way I can respond to things much more quickly than I would need to. Also, the neat thing is that the Ravagers are all bulked up on biomass, but they don't use the biomass properties. They have 300% life, which is cool, 100% attack speed, and 100% biotic leech. You don't use the attack speed and the biotic leech because you're going to be dropping your bile. But what this does mean is that if I did lose a Brutalisk because I didn't upgrade the armor, it's fine, because in that moment, bam, a Ravager is going to turn into a Brutalisk. I'm going to have basically an infinite supply of Brutalisks, an infinite supply of tanking. And I would just have to create a couple more Ravagers, which weren't that expensive. So we did a good job. I feel like we contributed. That's all we care about. We got more kills, but that's because we went on the attack and killed the bases. Our ally did great. He was in the right spots at the right times. He had some static defenses that compensated for his lack of mobility. That's not the player's lack of mobility. It's Stukov's mobility. So that's how I play Abathur on Temple with Tunneling Horror.